Okay, hi Justin. Hi Alfreda, Mohegan, Jarette, Vivian. Welcome to this live stream. Please send out the link for this live stream so that we can get as many people in as possible. I want to welcome with me tonight, I want to welcome Jarette Petzer. Welcome, Jarette, to this live stream. It's our second live stream on this channel. The last one, I believe, was on the 5th of September in last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, yeah, welcome. And now you are fellow YouTuber. I'm really excited about that. So, you launched your YouTube channel today, I believe. Started your YouTube channel. And what does it feel like to actually be on the platform?
It's a unique experience because I'm so used to the functionality that Facebook offers, right? I mean, my whole thing started on Facebook, and that's sort of where I've honed into. But I'm starting to understand the challenges around Facebook and some of the limitations that it has. So going onto a new channel is always a little bit daunting, but it's fun. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff on there. So I'm looking forward to exploring it a little bit more and to getting some cool content out.
Okay. Now, obviously, there's millions of South Africans that know who you are. You are known for starting a Facebook platform. I believe, is it the largest in Africa or the largest in South Africa? Jarette, hashtag I'm
Africa.
staying.
Yeah, the largest in Africa.
Okay. So, I mean, that's quite a big thing, and there's obviously been a lot of media coverage around that. And then subsequently, you started Move 1 Million,
Yeah.
and then you started the pro-choice group. Please tell
Yeah.
me about pro-choice, because that's obviously of big interest, especially for the people on this channel and the people that
Yeah.
will be following you. And people have posted a link in the description below this video where you can go to Jarette's channel. It's the only link that's there. So you will be able to go and follow it there. I will also post a link in the comments so that you can go and subscribe. And your channel, I believe, is already over 300 subscribers now. So
Yeah.
tell me about pro-choice before we go on
Cool.
to the specifics of the YouTube channel that you've just started.
Sure. So what I started to notice was an incredible increase in the anti-vax narrative building up on social
Okay.
media, and the tensions were starting to build. And so, I figured to myself, we've always sort of tried to find the thin line in terms of holding the country together. That was arms staying. It was at the same time a lot of political, racial tensions, and that was a sort of a platform that brought people together through shared experiences. And we've tried to do that all the way through our journey. So pro-choice was really about saying, listen, it shouldn't really make a difference what your medical decisions are. At the end of the day, we really need to be focusing on the limitation of our rights, the abuse of our constitution, the threats to our sovereignty and to our bodily autonomy. I mean, that really should be our focus and our fight. So that was the intention behind pro-choice, to bring it all together, to say, listen, I mean, let's put aside whatever decisions you've made, and hopefully you've made them based on getting the right information. And that sort of led us on our journey. When we start understanding just how much information is being suppressed or hidden, I think this is vital that we start to press forward and start asking the right questions, but focus on the task at hand, which is the stripping of our rights.
Jarette, I have to ask you, did you receive any resistance in going from hashtag I'm staying, Move 1 Million, then going to pro-choice, actually making that decision? Because it was probably quite a decision to make, that you decide that this is what you want to fight for.
Yeah.
What resistance did you get in doing that, if any?
So I'm staying, to be honest with you, it sort of came apart at the seams in terms of having the right people on and a shared vision. And I felt like whatever it was that I tried to create in the beginning was no longer the vision or the direction that we were going in, which sort of moved me on to Move 1 Million. And then I replicated the same model. And I think that's probably where I went wrong, is to say, we need to have a formalized structure, we need to have an NPC, we need to have all these bits and pieces, MRIs and all these things, because from the outside it's fantastic, but from the inside it really gives you a lot of limitation, and it really creates a lot of complexities where there shouldn't be. In terms of Move 1 Million, when we broke away, that was quite a painful one, because it was a big decision to make, and I'd already started to notice, we sat with a small executive committee, it was myself and Heather Nordia. Now, her and I share exactly the same belief systems and the same values. We think exactly the same. And on the other side, we had, two quite significant role players in South Africa that were, I could see them moving towards the just do it so we can get over it kind of narrative, and let's not focus on this divisive narrative. Let's rather focus on making sure we're keeping the streets clean and all that sort of stuff. So, that really got to the point where I said, the decision's actually not up to us. We've got a platform. We need to go to the platform to ask the members to see what the response would be. And obviously the response was overwhelming from those who participated in a poll that I put up.
Yeah.
Over 70%. And but what really broke the camel's back is when we partnered with the Red List, and subsequent, about a week before that, one of these guys that sat, I'm not going to mention names now because we're actually in the legal process, fine. But one of the guys mentioned that he just he was coercing his staff to take this medical procedure and this Red List. What it does is that it highlights any company that does that, because I don't think any companies are in a position to actually give people medical advice. So, and that was it. The next thing we received a one-line letter of resignation, and all hell broke loose. So we're in the middle of a fight right now for our lives. There's a lot of stuff going on, but again, I can't talk about that. I will talk about it as soon as we get past it. But massive resistance, Des. We met with massive resistance, but I wasn't prepared to fall back on it. I don't see how you can say that trying to bring people together and to focus on what's really important, which is our rights, is divisive. I don't see how that's divisive, And I think, if anything, putting a wedge in between those that are trying to perpetuate this narrative of vax, anti-vax, and to create this war between our people, that's really where the problem is. That's where the division exists. We should pull that out at all costs. We should be exposing that at every inch.
So tell me, Jarette, you as Jarette Petzer, how do you feel about freedom?
Sure. I feel like I thought I knew what that was, Des. I feel like I've gone through my entire life, as you grow up, you have this vision of success and what it means to be a successful person and what it means to be free, right? Because freedom really is like about having a lot of money in the bank and about having a car and about having all of these things. And that was freedom, freedom to move around and freedom to travel. And, and as things have progressed, I don't know if I've become more cynical, if I'm just starting to see the truth, from the lies, but we don't have freedom. And I don't think we've ever really had freedom. We are plugged into a system. Everything that we own is actually owns us. If it's not your smartphone, it's your bank, it's your bond. If it's not your bond, it's some other loan, your credit cards, whatever the case is. You're always trying to chase something new, always trying to fill that void. And I think that's what we do around the world. We're trying to fill this void with stuff because we think that stuff gives us value. So I'm at this place right now, and I think to myself, how is it that we can be living in this democracy where people claim that we have all these freedoms and we have the right to protest and the right to speak freely, and we've got all these rights that are apparently enshrined in our constitution. Yet here we are finding ourselves being beaten down, men and women being beaten down by police for trying to express their freedom. We've got big tech companies reaching into South Africa, suppressing our freedoms every step of the way, going over our constitution. Nobody is saying a word to them. We've got, at every angle, I'm watching our freedoms being eroded, and I'm really starting to feel claustrophobic. There's a real sense of claustrophobia that's happening with me. And I think to myself, like, if we continue down this trajectory now, the path that we're setting ourselves on, even though our freedoms have been taken away from us now, I hate to think what it's going to look like in 6 months or a year from now if we allow this to continue. Without freedom, there's no point to living. There's no point to being alive if you cannot freely choose what you want to do, right or wrong. It doesn't really matter. We must all deal with the consequences of our choices. But jeepers, when you give people freedom, they normally show you, what they really are. And societies are able to function all the time without having these rules and regulations and all these things imposed upon them. So I think without freedom, there is no point, and there's no point for us carrying on. You might as well just throw your hands up in the air and walk yourself into a concentration camp.
Okay, that ties me into the next question I want to ask you, and then we can get to your channel, because I think it's important that people understand what you can do, and I really support the fact that you're doing this and speaking openly to the public about this. Your take on humanity.
There's I think we have, and I don't know if this is the right way to answer. I don't know if there's a right or wrong way to answer, but like if you see, and especially here in South Africa, I remember speaking to somebody that recently visited Australia. There was somebody that was walking down the road. They had a fit in front of everybody, and people were stepping over. They were stepping over that person and just carrying on with their day. And I thought to myself, that was something shocking, because I could never imagine my people in South Africa, our people, our South Africans, ever doing something like that. I could never. You would never anticipate somebody. It doesn't matter what race you're from or what culture you're from. When one of us goes down, the rest of us huddle. And to me, that really speaks to humanity. That speaks to reaching beyond yourself. And maybe beyond your own comfort zones, even beyond your own safety. For others, and for putting your own value system first. I think that really, in my view, that's what humanity is to me. Humanity is loving and caring and being kind and forging paths together and not being divisive and not putting things over people and not valuing stuff more than you value your own fellow man. I think that is my definition of it anyway.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that with me. I just want to tell everyone I don't discuss any questions that I have in an interview with anyone beforehand. So, I mean, you had to answer these off the cuff. But what that does is people can see where you're at the moment, how you perceive things. And anyone that had any doubts or misunderstandings with regards to your intentions at the moment and what you stand for and what you're experiencing, you've cleared that up. Because to me, the two most important things now is, where does someone stand on freedom? Okay, where does someone stand on humanity? Because humanity has become dead to politicians. They don't speak about love anymore. They don't speak about feeling anymore, any of those things. And divisive, you used the word divisive earlier, that is everywhere. I mean, how people are being divided. And we have to fight this. It's important to fight that. And I'm not a person competing with other YouTube channels. That is why I want many YouTube channels out there where people can speak their truth. And I believe that you can make a big difference if you relay your experiences with people, because you've experienced a lot. Let's speak about Jarette Petzer, the YouTube channel. You named it Jarette Petzer, and you didn't give it any other name. So it's really you. This is authentically you. It's your experiences. I watched your introduction clip, and I think it's short, to the point, what the channel is about. And I really like that, because it doesn't beat around the bush. It's straightforward, telling you what it's going to be about. So what is mulled through your mind? I know you've been on the platform now for a day. This channel is new. It's what is going through your mind? And I will certainly, I'm willing to help you to beat the algorithms and give you some tips. But what's going on in your mind right now with regards to what you would like to achieve?
So I think there's two things that are vitally important to me right now. And those two things, number one, is being able to expose truth and really being able to bring truth to surface. Whether we want to see that or not, it's irrelevant. But people need to know, they need to see the truth. So on the one hand, I really want to bring truth to surface, and we're going to be doing a lot of investigation. I want to be investigating, guys. I want to, if I can get some help from journalists and private investigators. And there's a lot of people that we've looked at, a lot of organizations, but individuals in particular that I'd like to really start bringing to the forefront, so we can understand better who's making the decisions within our media, within our healthcare systems, within our politics. Really start giving these guys a personality and a profile, like you do and like they do with everybody else. So. And particularly when it comes to the media, who I believe they've been caught quite severely by the pharmaceutical companies. But anyway, that is the one on the one side. On the other side, we can sit and we can fight this system all day long. We can try to fight the system all day long. And I think as long as we're doing that, we're actually feeding it, because we can take the energy that we have, and this is what I love about what I've experienced with you, Des, and what I've learned about OHM and a whole lot of other people out there, really, where we need to be focusing on really starting to build a new way. And so if we can start bringing that stuff to light, how do we go about building a new way? How do we become self-sustainable? How do we, become less reliant on government and look after ourselves? How do we plan for the worst? We might not want to talk about it, but let's talk about it. The time is now for having these discussions. And hopefully we're all wrong and everything's been dramatized. But if it's not, then at least let us have an opportunity to be able to fend for ourselves and protect ourselves and look after our loved ones should the time arrive when we need to do so. So I think those are really going to be the two focal points, bringing stuff to surface and then showing people what I'm learning as I go.
Well, a personal journey, there's nothing more powerful than that, because you were thrown into the media limelight with #ImStaying. I mean, that group grew exponentially. I mean, the growth must have been even up to 10,000 people a day, which is almost unheard of, if not bigger.
35,000.
35,000
people a day.
That is insane. I was involved in adminning on a group where the highest growth was over 9,000 a day with #Leave Our Kids Alone. And it's incredible how that can overwhelm you, drain you. There's so much that happens. How has this experience been for you? And maybe explain a little bit about your past so that people can understand where you come from and where you've moved to being an activist in public.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was in real estate. I never finished school, so I don't have any secondary education, but I've always had the ability to be able to communicate with people, and I've always done well in sales. So I was in the mining technology space for a while, traveling into Africa. I got to travel Africa quite extensively, which I really enjoyed for a while. And then I was involved in real estate. So that was it, and I think at the time when I made the video that kicked off #ImStaying, I was speaking to myself more than anything else, because I wasn't going through a good time. The country wasn't going through a good time. And I was trying to find something to hold on to. And I think maybe that's why that message resonated. And I think that's why it exploded like that. But jeepers, I mean, I had no clue it was going to do that. I'm not a politician. I'm not a media person. I'm not anybody that was an influencer or anything like that. So the ride was unbelievable, and it was punishing. It was brutal. Because, a lot of people come in because they see you as the vehicle for them to achieve what they want to achieve.
I wanted to ask you that. How long did it take for people to approach you once that happened?
No, within days. I mean, within the first 2 or 3 days. Because remember, I think by day 13, we were sitting on 500,000 people already. So I got calls. One after the next, and then some of the high profile ones I took and we engaged with, and you're sort of like, okay, cool, these guys know what they're talking about. These guys are in the space. These guys are playing in the political realm. They understand everything. And I quickly learned that wasn't really the truth, because their vision wasn't my vision. These people I spoke to, they automatically wanted me to convert the #ImStaying over to a political party, and I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to turn this thing into a political party. And that was really the end of the downfall of those relationships. Those when those things started to crash. But I was just a bloody normal guy. I had no idea it was going to accelerate the way that it did. But what the journey has taught me, number one, is you have to have a bloody thick skin, because it's brutal out there. And you know that. I mean, it's brutal. And for somebody like me, I'm actually very emotional. I'm actually a very soft person. So when somebody, and especially when you know your own intentions, when you know what kind of a person you are and what you're trying to achieve, and somebody comes in and says something, and it's just everything about what they've said is completely opposite to who you are as a person, you either allow that stuff to sink you, or you develop a thick leather type skin. So that has been definitely one of the processes. One of the processes has been like, don't think you're ever going to get everybody on your side, because that's just not the truth.
Yeah.
And don't think that you can ever keep anybody happy, because that's also not true. You have to make a stand. And people are going to, when you make that stand, people are either going to stand with you or they're going to walk away from you. But you have to, who was it that said if you don't make a stand, you haven't actually stood for anything in your life? One of the warmongers. So I think that's it, and so I've learned a lot about people. I've learned a lot about relationships, and I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned about, some of the ideas that I had, the ideology that I had was just not practical, because I wanted to create a utopia. I wanted to create this place of love, and just where everybody could come together and just be together. And that, when things don't go your way, that's kind of disheartening. And then you have to learn how to deal with that pain. You have to learn how to deal with the fact that you're not going to be able to get what you want to get.
Yeah.
And you have to learn about making tough decisions and holding on to your values no matter what. And even if you've made mistakes along the way, hold on to your values, because your values will always see you through.
Yeah.
Your values, your values are the thing that will always see you through. The moment you step over your own values and your own principles, you might as well pack your bags because you're done.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. I'm quite proud of myself for the fact that I've done that. I'm quite proud of myself, even though I've gone through all these experiences, that I've managed to hold on to my values. And nobody will ever take that away from me. No one. So from that regard, I've grown a lot, and I've also learned you don't always have to keep your mouth shut. Sometimes you can open your mouth and you can fight back, and sometimes it's better to shut up. Yeah, I learned that as well.
Yeah, but Jarette, you've obviously rubbed shoulders with many influential people that are getting funds from all over the world and driving directions in the country. And that must have been quite an experience. I just want to read some of the comments before we get back to that. Johan Strauss says, as long as the truth stands with you. Antoinette said, a great combination. And Audrey says, we can see that he's very passionate. And then Jean says, Jarette, we're with you. Jarette Marie Haman said, absolutely. I know Jarette has been a big supporter of yours. So very positive comments coming in. I've shared the link to the channel, people, a couple of times now, so please go and subscribe and get Jarette to that magical first 1,000, so that the algorithms can really kick in and the messages he wants to put out, that it can really work for us in this fight for freedom. So Jarette, mixing with some of these people, what is your experience? Just give us your honest experience, the influences out there.
Well, if you're talking about politicians, I've got to tell you, I actually haven't met one that I trust. Well, I say that I met with the Reverend from ACDP. I quite liked him, although we've only had one engagement. But I love the fact that he put his balls on the line. Okay. I really love that about him. And he did. He stuck himself out there, and he took a big risk. And when I spoke to him, I get a lot of sincerity from him. So that's quite comforting. But he's probably about the only one. Okay. What I've realized from everybody else is that they're always playing some type of game. There's always some type of game, and very, very, very seldom is that game, does it have anything to do with the benefits or benefiting of South Africans? It's got everything to do with how do they take position, how do they get support. That's all. They reduce people to supporters, to numbers, and not to like this. We are servants. We are here to serve the people. That whole philosophy, that whole ideology doesn't exist unless they are electioneering. Yeah. So that's been an eye-opening experience for me. I mean, some of the stuff that some of these guys have done, I mean, it's just they're so blatant. I mean, I had a meeting with one of the UIM guys, and I mean, this is probably the first time I'm going to speak about this, but the way that they tried to rope you in, wanting me to come in as a deputy president for the organization, and I said to them, like, what part of I don't want to be part of a political party? Don't you understand? But no, you can be deputy president. I'm like, I don't think you understand. I mean, the chances of you being the president of South Africa, number one, are zero. And number two, I don't want to bloody be a politician. I don't want to be somebody that's there trying to, fly our flag higher than the next. And that's the funny thing. None of these guys fly the South African flag. They all fly their own flag, don't they? The South African flag is nowhere to be seen.
It's very important that you say that, Jarette, because that ties in with the fact that we actually need public representatives, not people ruling over us, right? I mean, and that's why we need system change. Because in a new system, you can actually be a representative of the people who are the government on the ground in whatever way, shape, or form. And that's a very different thing, isn't it, to being a career politician?
Yeah. Yeah, so that really excited me. I think that when I first got involved with, remember it was March 1 million, by the way. You helped me with that. Do you remember that? We were going to call it March 1 million.
That's correct.
You helped me to soften that. But, that's when the whole concept of direct elections and all that sort of stuff came through during Move 1 million, I loved the idea so much. And I really saw great potential following with some of the guys, like Michael Louis and all of those guys. I really thought there was something there. But after going through the process, I got to see a number of things. One of the fact that, the ANC decided that, hold on a second, they just don't like the bill. Boom, it's out. Never mind following due process. They completely overrode the Court's decision, I mean, and it's a joke. It's a whole lot of malarkey, you know. The only real value I see now is the fact that we can break away, forget about your conventional political ideology, break away from that completely. How do you, as the people, as communities, work within your municipalities, strengthen those municipalities and build like that? And I think that's it, you know. And all those little cogs working together, and the whatever form of government there is, that form of government serves to serve those communities. End of story. You know, make sure that we're safe and serve your community. That's all we need from government. We don't need much more.
Yeah, and the thing is, they don't need to govern over us. Maybe we can find a new name for it in future. I don't know, you know, because I'm not a politician. I'm not running for office. But we certainly do need people that can help spearhead the fight towards a new system. And I just want to get your perspective on that. Your feelings and your willingness to change the system that we're in right now. And I don't know how I know you very new to the circumstances that you find yourself in because of all these people who clearly were not who you thought they were. And your perspective has obviously changed. So where is your mind at this stage with regards to the system we find ourselves in?
Well, from our perspective, I think that we have a real challenge in front of us, and the system is beyond broken. It's actually designed to destroy us. It's not even a broken system. The system is designed to work against the people. It's designed to do that. That's what I see happening all around me. In terms of how we fight back, I think that we're seeing the fight back happen now on a daily basis. You know, I'm watching doctors, lawyers, teachers, scientists, influencers. I mean, you name it, just everyday people, moms, dads, sisters, brothers, standing up and doing something, being accountable in some way. And I think for me, that's amazing. We're starting to see all these efforts are in some way going to frustrate the system. It's going to frustrate the system, and it's going to cause a lot of slowdown and a lot of frustrations. And I believe as that happens, the confidence within the Republic will grow and people will start to get in. Everybody wants to back a winning team. It's only a few brave men and women right now that are standing up, but I definitely see that number growing. And I think that we just have to continue with what we're doing. And again, you know, that system needs to get to a point where that system is irrelevant, where instead of getting upset with the system, we laugh at the system because that system means nothing to us anymore. You guys want that system, you have it. If you want to have that system, it's yours. You deal with it. We want happiness. We want freedom. We want peace. We want to spend time with our kids. We want to build. We want to be co-creators like we were designed to be. You know, not a slave to some bloody system.
I actually like that. Pro-creators.
Yeah, well, that's what we are, right? I mean,
we speak about creating anything. You know, there's so much we can create in society, Jarette, in communities, etc. And haven't they just taken that possibility away from us? Haven't they stopped us from being heroes, even in times of dire need? You know, it's like you're not given that opportunity anymore because government and large corporations will do everything for you.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, so I was watching Candace Owens the other day, and she was saying, what happens today if the grid fails, if you have imminent grid failure, and we know this is going to become a reality. They're talking about cyber attacks. It's becoming more and more prominent. It's happening in the WEF, and when it starts to happen there, you better be sure that it's going to make its way around the world. So, you know, and she was saying, well, what happens if tomorrow power was out and that was it, everything that you knew, the way that you knew how to live? That means no more supply, no more food, no more anything. How would you survive? You know, and when you actually ask yourself that question, you better get a fright, you know, if you can't answer that question. And I think we really need to start asking ourselves that question. How do you survive if everything you know turns on its head tomorrow? And we can't, because they have completely crippled us. The political parties have worked to destroy our history. So we don't even know how to handle what's happened, you know, in the past. We don't even know how to look back and say, like, how do we move forward? I'm almost convinced that's their policy. They have made us completely dependent on meat, on fruit, on vegetables, on water. They control our water supplies. They control everything. That's a real risk, you know. I mean, any country that's anybody that doesn't have control over their own ability to sustain themselves and to look after themselves in times, testing times, is in real trouble. And I mean, what do we do here? You know, 30 million people in South Africa are starving as we speak right now. That tells me not just that the system's failed the people, but that those people have got no idea how to be able to actually look after themselves because the system has made it so. You know?
Okay, Jarette, you've just described so much content for your channel. I mean, if you actually think about it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's endless. So I think the
yeah.
people watching now are starting to get an idea of what they can expect on your channel, and I would really encourage people. I'm going to put the link here again to go and subscribe to Jarette Petzer and go on this journey with Jarette as he joins us in the fight for freedom. You've heard his opinions on freedom, humanity, the system. These are all things that are important to people on the channel Double O Des, and they can see they need to decide for themselves. I always tell people, you make your own decision. Do you actually want to walk a path with somebody? And all I can say is, when I engage with you, Jarette, I've been asking you to start a YouTube channel for a very long time, and you're probably not in the space to do that, and influenced too much by other people, as you said, that approach you so quickly when you do something profound. And I'm glad that you had that experience, because without it, you can't really learn, right? Would you have done things differently?
Well, no, because I mean, how many conversations that you and I have? You were always very direct with me, and I wanted to experience it for myself. I did. I wanted to experience it for myself. Maybe there's a little bit of ego talking there. Maybe there's you think to yourself, maybe you can do it better. I don't know. I don't know why, but I think human nature is like, people can tell you not to put your finger on the plate, but on the hot plate, but until you put your finger on the hot plate, you don't know why they say that, and you need to know. So I don't think anything would have.
Often the people that put their finger on the hot plate later becomes the best advocates for not putting your finger on the hot plate.
Exactly. So I've gained a wealth of experience, and I've managed to fortify myself. I've got armor, and I've got a little bit more clarity, and I know what to look for. So all of these things, and this is all through personal pains, personal experiences. So I'm very grateful for these experiences that I've gone through. And as you say, I can now become a great advocate for these things, having lived some of it myself. It's not necessarily second or third hand information. It's my information, So
that's beautiful. That has value, Jarette, because the people in the country at the moment, they need information. My channel is about information. Your channel is going to be about information, but you actually have your own real life experience. So what you can discuss with people isn't going to come from a library or the internet. It's going to come from your own experiences. So that certainly has value. And the fact that you experience that has a lot of value to me, and my family, because we need more people to be aware of what's happening in the world. We need the people to be awakened, and we need many people like you to go on platforms where you can reach lots of people and spread that information. I mean, it's vital that we get the information out. Now, you've spoken to me about an idea you have to get this media, various media sources that are trying to enlighten people as to the truth of what's going on outside of mainstream, to get that to people faster and in a far greater way than before. Could you perhaps talk about that?
Sure. So we've got something in the pipeline called Viral Machine South Africa, VMSA. And essentially, it's going to be a rebel news network. So we want to be able to all the information that's not being discussed in the media, all the unbalanced reporting, we want to start bringing some balance to that. We want to start scratching below the surface, and also start investigating people. Like I said earlier, we want to, if there's journalists that are hanging on a particular narrative, we want to know who those journalists are. We want to start learning a little bit more about who they are, who their editors are, who's funding these journalists. So who are the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? I mean, like they pop up everywhere, and we see them behind NGOs that are funding a number of our media companies, and yet they're supposed to be impartial. So we really need to start having these conversations and start holding the media to account, and that's one of the steps that we want to do. Similarly, we want to do that with the universities, the guys that are sitting in universities making the decisions. Again, who's making the decisions? Where are you getting your funding from? Is this a conflict of interest? We need to start finding out this information. So the whole process is really going to be about drilling as much information as we can. We want to focus on the corporate sector. I want to throw a particular focus on Facebook. We know they've got representation here in South Africa, so we want to learn a little bit more about Facebook and why they are able to override our constitution just at a whim. I mean, so these are the sorts of things we want to start uncovering and start unpacking. I really want to start getting to the bottom of what's happening. And luckily, I found youngsters in universities, guys that are studying law, guys that are studying journalism. Like, these are the guys that are coming out. So they're fresh, they're young, they're ballsy. It's exactly the sort of stuff that we need. I'm looking for people that are influencers, guys that can help us putting the tech together. This is really just like everybody just chip in, and there's no monetization on it. There's no corporation on it. We're not planning to formalize it in any way. This thing is literally just going to bring up all the stuff that nobody else seems to want to talk about, and to really start personalizing the people responsible for the situation that we're in, and see how much interest we can get from the public. I think once the public really starts to pinpoint and see who they're dealing with, maybe they'll get a little bit more excited, and we can start to do what they did for the Guptas, standing outside people's houses with placards and whatnot. Who knows where it might go, but that's it. For us, it's vitally important that we get this information out to the public domain. There is no more balanced reporting. There is no more independent media. None. Not from what I can see. And that needs to change,
Yeah, I think that is important, very important. And to me, anything that helps us to think more free, think more critically, is a huge help to the fight. And for you to actually spend the time to focus on those niches, I think is so invaluable to South Africa. And I really want to thank you for taking on something like that, because I physically don't have the time to do that, and to know that you're going to be doing that. I hope that there will be people that will support you, and I hope the people on this channel will support you, Jarette, that they'll go and subscribe, that they'll become members of your channel in future to support the work that you are doing, and just help grow this critical mass of people that are starting to think differently. And how have you seen people change in South Africa since you started hashtag I'm staying, then move 1 million, pro-choice, and how do you see things now towards what they call the fourth wave that is being spoken of coming this December? How have you seen the people of the country change?
Sure. I'm watching some of the most intelligent, well-educated people that I know, people that you look up to. They seem to be completely oblivious to the facts of where we are, right? And they are hung up and whatever they did with this false flag operation, which I believe that this is a false flag operation, false flag operations are always very good for driving fear, because fear is always very good for surrendering rights and all those types of things. And we've seen that throughout history. So I think, we watched this 2019, hashtag I'm staying comes up. We won the World Cup. South Africa's back on track. We're on a high, CR17 is coming in to the rescue, and, nothing. Then we see these lockdown measures coming down on us, absolutely incredible lockdown measures. Almost all of us were like, okay, cool, they need to flatten the curve. We understand this severity of this. The numbers were coming through thick and fast about all these infections, all these deaths. You see people falling over in the streets, killing over, dying. I'm yet to see that happen in South Africa, by the way. Yeah. We see all of these things. So it was amazing how they just shifted everybody's focus into this thing. This thing is going to kill you. And that was the message. That is still the message. It's going to kill you. It's going to get you. What about the 99.97% recovery rate? Oh, no. That's irrelevant, Joe. What's relevant is the infection rates, the death rates, all these types of things. So I've watched a real bending of the psyche of the minds of South Africans. Just globally. I mean, people's minds are bent. And you can't really it's very difficult, should I say, to have a conversation with them that peaks out, because they position themselves on one side of the camp, they really have. And
that's another division, isn't it?
Yeah, it's another division. But I've got to tell you something, though. Out of that division actually came two very powerful groupings. You've got this very small grouping in South Africa, the 25%er, that is made up of all different colors and cultures and whatever the case is. I call them the soft middle. Those are the guys that have full-blown bought into the MSM nonsense. Then you've got 75% of the country that they're not budging, and it's amazing. And I've been penetrating all the mainstream media. I don't know if you guys are watching, but I penetrate them all the time. I hit all the articles with a little bit of fact. And we started to get a huge number of supporters behind us. And what I can see happening slowly but surely is people are starting to follow my page. And I see people, when I post things now about information that I've got, people are like, oh, hold on a second, there's actually value to this. So I think that there's been a huge psychological hypnosis massive hypnosis that's happened in South Africa. But I feel if we just keep on bashing away, hammering away, trying to get to the truth, that eventually, we'll get people snapped out of it. But at least 75% of our country, the majority of South Africa, the majority of South Africa has turned around and said, no, we're not doing this. And that to me is very encouraging.
And we're the highest in the world with regards to that. I mean, if you look at a country that has first world development within it, that is incredible.
Yeah. It also makes you ask a whole lot of questions. In fact, go look at Africa and go look at the rest of the world, and you should be asking yourselves a lot of questions. You should be asking yourselves a lot of questions based on what you see there. This is what we need to do. Critical thinking. There's, you talk about critical thinking all the time. And I think once you switch the critical thinking tap on, it's difficult to switch off. But it's very important that we get people asking questions. And people aren't asking questions. They're just accepting everything that they receive. They're just accepting it, and we need to stop accepting it, especially when it doesn't make any sense. And none of this stuff makes sense. So,
well, I really hope that you can share your video content, your YouTube video content, on the other platforms that you've created before, because there's hundreds of thousands of people on there. And that a lot of those people will open their minds and their hearts and actually listen to what you are saying. And I really hope that you can penetrate and be inspired in ways to get to them, because we need that group of people that are captured by mainstream media. We need to shock them out of that thought process that makes them almost worship the mainstream media. It's like they can say nothing wrong. Everything they say is spot on. You shouldn't question it. And the school system taught most people that. And I don't want to go into a discussion on the school system, but, even my kids, when they were still in school before we removed them, they were taught to do mondelings, to do orals on a newspaper article. And it has to be regurgitated as fact. And I have a huge problem with that idea, because that removes critical thinking. It removes something you mentioned earlier, which is being inventive, thinking for yourself, being creative. It's completely being destroyed. So where do you think we are headed if this plan of the global elites pans out?
There'll be any semblance of individuality, will be ostracized. Critical thinking will be outlawed, and we are becoming cogs in the wheel, numbers. That's all we are. I think if this thing rolls out the way they want it to roll out, we will be owned. We will literally be owned. We will be owned by a system. We will no longer be independent, free human beings, and now instead push towards this new world where man and machine must collide. And I think there's a huge problem with what we're doing, in that space. I think we're playing with things we don't understand. I've said for a long time now, don't stuff around with nature. Don't mess around with nature's design. And this is what we're doing. We're moving away from nature. We're moving away from everything that is earthly and everything that is good, and all towards man. It's like the Tower of Babel. And everyone's building this calamity to try and get to try and be a part of this thing. And it's has become the worship of man, right? It's become the worshiping of man. And that to me is a problem, a real big problem, when man fills this void and everything natural is rejected and made conspiracy, like your immune system.
A very basic thing that's worked very well for me up until now. But tying into that, Jarette, you're talking about man becoming important. And in the 80s, there was this huge drive to glorify man. And now it's starting to change to where man is now seen as the biggest enemy to the planet, and where man needs to be eradicated. In other words, removed from the planet, saying that we are actually redundant, mistakes, and many things like that. Have you seen narratives like that?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that kind of stuff. I mean, that's pretty much, that narrative is thick and fast, although nobody seems to be paying attention to it, and they really, really should be. I don't think these guys are joking. If somebody tells you they want to kill you, believe them. I think people don't say stuff like that unless they mean it, and they don't follow it up back with numbers of TED Talks and interviews and to continuously reaffirm it. I mean, you can find this information anywhere. I think when I talk about the worshipping of man, I look at guys like Fauci. I look at all of these people that all of a sudden they've been put up to this godlike status. And to me, sure, I mean, that's playing with fire. You're playing with fire, especially when you look at this is my experience that I've had dealing with a whole bunch of different CEOs, dealing with very, very powerful people, is that people that are in a position of power, they didn't land there by mistake. They're hungry for it. They have a thirst for it. They have this narcissistic ideology, this need to be in control, this need to have everybody under them to be the omega. And you can't get away from that. I mean, I haven't come across one that isn't like that, really. They might have fooled themselves in thinking that they're not, and that they are all things to, but the reality is that people that are in a position of power don't fall into those positions of power. They strive for them. They strive for them. And we really need to be asking ourselves, why? Why do you have this thirst for power? And I remember having a conversation with somebody quite influential once upon a time as well. And he said to me, every single person he knows that sits in a position of government today or in business, when they were in school, they were narcissists. They were narcissistic individuals in school. And now today they are running our country. They're running our country. They're driving our companies,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the thing is, but that's a very important thing to understand, because that's where they end up. Because of the system, Jarette, that was created. Yeah. And the thing is, in ending off, we've been going for 46 minutes now. It's been an awesome discussion. There's been stunning comments that's been given. There's a lot of support for what you are doing. And I think your subscribers would have climbed significantly after this interview. And maybe we can get to 1,000 subs by tomorrow. What do we actually do? We have to implement a plan that's opposite to what they are doing. That's the only way I can see us doing that. And that means that you have to empower individuals and let them become government, and let them exercise their common law. And I think it's very important that the power of the individual in their own lives, in their family, in their community, that they feel that they can do things for their community again, do things for their family, do things for themselves, instead of someone else doing it for them. Because remember, these narcissists, they get other people to do things for them. They don't do it for themselves.
Yeah.
Someone else will do the dirty work for them.
Yeah.
So we need to empower individuals. And so what do you think, besides giving people information, can we do, and besides programs like OHM, which you mentioned earlier, has got, what would you advise general people in the public, people watching the stream now? What can they do in their lives right now? What would you advise them to do to become more independent? You spoke earlier about being independent of control, government control, corporate control, and you're actually speaking about these narcissists that actually run those institutions. What can people do? What would you advise them to do?
My first thing would be to ask yourself the question: how dependent am I? How dependent am I? Because once you ask yourself that question and you realize just how dependent you are, I think that's when you can start to really understand how you move away from that dependency towards something that is more independent, and then definitely, I mean, look at what the organic humanity movement are doing, because it's practical stuff. It's actual practical stuff. Okay, cool. I realize that I have a problem. I realize that I'm vulnerable. I realize that I'm a slave to the system. I need to now build myself out of that. So what is the process of building myself? What does that look like for me, for my family? I think, and then really connect with movements like OHM that have got practical how-to guides. I mean, there are people out there right now that are practically doing this stuff right now. They are getting off the grid. They are becoming self-sustainable. They're removing themselves. They're unplugging themselves from the system. So
instead of attacking it, they're actually withdrawing from it.
They're out. Yeah, they're out. They're out. And I think that's it. Once you can expose how filthy this thing is and how broken it is, and that you have got zero hope of fixing it, it doesn't matter what political party you try to bring in there. It doesn't matter what you do, because the system itself is completely corrupted. When people start to finally understand that and make peace with it, because I think, that's the thing, is making peace with it, knowing something and then being prepared to act on that. Those are two different things. And you need to first find peace in the fact that everything that you think you know is gone, and it's time for something new.
I like the fact that you mentioned making peace, because I've never addressed that, Jarette, to be honest. And I would really ask you to address that specific topic. I actually want to ask you to write that down. Because I think helping people to make peace with something is a big part of the psychology, because you become so dependent on these large corporations and government. In fact, it becomes your life. Your whole life revolves around someone else doing something for you. And you're not realizing that you are literally handing over water and food, the two most important things you need for survival, to corporations. If they stop supplying it to you tomorrow, you're going to die.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I mean, without water, you're going to die within 72 hours. Literally.
Yeah. I mean, and we should be very concerned by the fact that any corporations have got the monopoly on things like water. I mean, basics like water and medicines and all these types of things, especially when you look at their track record, you look at who they are, you look at the lawsuits that have gone up against these guys, the damage that has been done along their path to just take control over everything. I don't like the fact that I've got something that I don't know what's in the bottle. I'm getting more and more paranoid every day, about what I'm eating that I buy in the shops. And I think we all should be, like, what are they giving us? What are they feeding us? What are we putting in our bodies? We don't, how much longer can we live? I mean, look at humanity under the system, how much unhealthier we've become. We are unhealthy, man. They feed you toxic stuff so they can sell you medicine. I mean, like,
when you're in the business of curing sick people, you don't want healthy people, do you, if you want to make money?
No, exactly right. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, so we should be, if I can't go to the stream and gather the water in my hands together and sip it from the stream, and at least I know that water it's good and it's healthy, it's got osmosis, it's gone all the way down the mountain, it's got all the minerals and I want that in my life. I want that in my body, and we should be having that in our food, in our body. That's what we reach. How do we get closer to nature? How do we get closer to living a healthy lifestyle? We are nowhere near it, and there's no ways that we can do that in this current system either.
And all I've asked people to do in the past, Jarette, is to become as self-reliant as they can. Because it's difficult for many people. Let's talk about the people in the last 8 minutes before we finish up that are in informal settlements. You've been into informal settlements. And tell me what you experienced there.
It differs from township to township, but the gist is always the same. You've got nothing. You've got very little in the way of, well, there's never any services. But what is quite encouraging is that you're starting to see lots of these little, like, farming God's way type of, like, 1 by 2 meter farming beds. And you're seeing those, like, sort of cropping up throughout the communities. And you have people almost bartering with each other, swapping out their food and vegetables. But I think by and large, our townships, we know they're incredibly neglected. There's not much in there in the way of any types of services or whatever, but at least you have very strong community. I think the communities are starting to build stronger together. And I also think the people in our townships they know more than anybody else what neglect feels like, eh? I mean, you don't have to tell them what it's like to be neglected.
So they understand the system. They know exactly what the system is doing. It's just that some people have been privileged to get the fruits of Babylon, as I call it sometimes, all these nice little things that you can buy with fiat currency that has no value. And that keeps you going, but that enslaves you. I see the people in informal settlements as more free than many other people are. A lot of them don't sit in debt, but that is changing. People want to get, the world elites, I've noticed, want to get to the money that even the poorest of the poor have. And I find that very disturbing. I'm actually, I never thought they would stoop that low. But even now, for instance, and I'll just mention this quickly, with cryptocurrency trading, you can now get access to the 10 and 20 rands of someone that is trying to double that on Luna or whatever, and even take that away from them. I mean, it's actually unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. They weren't joking when they said you will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, they weren't kidding.
Yeah.
They weren't kidding.
So building all these smart cities, you know, I don't know how much you know about smart cities. I'm not sure that I've discussed that with you, but I know that there are smart cities under construction for a third of the South African population at this stage. And what do you think when you think of technology being used to monitor, track, and trace and control what people do?
No, I think that's absolute insanity. I've never understood why people would ever be okay with that. And then I started to realize, well, if you don't know any better, then it's normal, right? And so if you look at a place like China, for example, people actually love the system. They love it. They love the fact that they can see into the next person's social credit scoring and all those types of things. You know, it is so unnatural. It is so unnatural. It is so wrong. And we're watching the elements of this come into play right here in South Africa. We're watching slowly but surely with this passport. We're seeing the boomer cams, the facial recognition boomer cams coming up all over the country. We're seeing the blockchain technology linked to the health passport. We see them talking a couple of years ago about the ZAR cryptocurrencies. It's only a matter of time before our driver's licenses, before our credit scoring systems, between everything. We're seeing it happen rolling out in America right now as we speak. It's only a matter of time. And when you talk to people about this, they don't seem to care. Imagine living in a world where everything you did, every single move you made was monitored, tracked, and traced. You know, I can think of nothing more invasive, nothing more unnatural. It makes me nauseous to my stomach when I think about it.
I actually spoke to someone earlier today that said to me he doesn't mind being monitored, tracked, and traced. It matters to him that monitoring, tracking, and tracing would be used to stop him from exercising his freedoms. And then he said something very interesting to me. He says, but the problem is when they take that away from you, once it's gone to that point, you can't guarantee that they won't. And then it's too late.
Well, what can we do? All we have to do is look at how things have been handled over the last 18 months and all of the carrot dangling and the promises made and the shirking and the shifting and the changing of goalposts to know that almost guaranteed you will not get what you think you're going to get. You're not going to get to the end of this thing and be like, oh, that was worth it. No, that's not going to be the result.
Well, I really like the way that you think, and it shows me that you've matured in the space of what's happening in the world, and I'm really happy to hear that. But I want to ask you now about an event that happened in last year towards the end of March, where all the current political parties represented in Parliament stood behind Cyril Ramaphosa and agreed to have us locked down for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that speaks to... Yeah, I think that speaks to independence, right? And it's the same level of independence that we're seeing in our media. So when you start to see all of these parties that are supposedly standing against each other, that hate what they stand for, that want to fight for the country and the best interest of the country, when you see them all stand up there, and you can't tell me that they didn't know what was going on before all of us did, because these guys get to sit in their dark little rooms. They all stand there and they all make this decision together unanimously for the better interest of man, for the better interest of us, while none of them were locked down, while none of them lost their jobs, while none of them succumbed to these flipping regulations that we all had to succumb to. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? They've already made it the them and the us, right? They already love the idea that they will have this autonomy, this control. Maybe they don't have to fight for position anymore with their political parties. We can all control them together. You know, I don't know what their discussions are behind closed doors, but it must be sinister. And at least we know now, unequivocally, what these parties like the DA stand for in terms of our education system, in terms of the lockdowns, in terms of all of these things. I would say I'm very grateful because they have laid bare who they are, what they stand for, what they represent, you know. So my thoughts are thank you for doing what you've done. You know, at least people can see. And you can see it in the polls. So I quite like
there's
that. I quite like
the
that.
fact that so many people didn't go and vote in these elections, I still see as a vote against the system.
Yeah,
Is it
exactly.
not?
Against the system.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what the
Yeah.
people of South Africa are saying is we don't believe in the system that we have right now.
Yeah.
We don't believe it has any value anymore.
Yeah.
And even the mainstream media could not ignore that. So
Yeah.
that gives us a job, Jarette. It gives us a job because
Yeah.
we need to actually find a way to tell all of those people that have given up on the system that we can provide a way, we can find a way, and that we can make a path clear. And
Yeah.
I think one of the things that all the channels that I support will hopefully do is tell people to become self-reliant first,
Yeah.
so that
Yeah.
you can make choices for yourself. Because the day you
Yeah.
can't go into the shop because you haven't done this, and
Yeah.
they want your passport, and you can't go and buy something off a shelf, that day your choice is being taken away for you. And
Yeah.
now, if you don't have options, what are you going to do, really? People need to think about that.
They really, really do. And we need to, I don't want to create panic in the mind of anybody, and I'm sure you don't either,
No.
but we really need to start thinking about this stuff. We don't want to be in a situation where you turn back and you say, I should have done it, I think the stakes are way too high, and the consequences of that discussion are going to be way too vast, to have that. So we must be proactive, and we need to get going quickly.
Well, I really want to thank you for joining me into this live stream. We've been chatting for 60 minutes. It's really been awesome. The comments has been really awesome. I really want to thank all of you for joining us. We had over 360 people viewing concurrently just now, which is really awesome. And I've put the link to your channel in the description, in the description below the video. I will also put it in the first comment below the video so the people can go and subscribe. I've placed it in numerous times now in the chat. People, please go and subscribe to Jarette Petzer on YouTube and go and support this initiative that Jarette has to bring information to you, the South African people. And he's been on a journey, and I suppose I've seen a part of that journey. At the beginning, you contacted me for the first time, so you wanted to engage with people, and I gave you a really hard time. So I am brutal. I believe at the end of the day, it probably pays off. And I always say, the best plan will always win, even if it's an evil one. So we need to have the best plan for good. And to me, the best plan for good is freedom to make choices. And that then we live with the consequences of that freedom. We live with the consequences. Just like you were there when the police chased me and women came to my rescue, literally, who got beaten up by the police. But the thing is, those policemen had the freedom to do what they did. The same way we had the freedom to do what we did. That is freedom. And then there should be consequences for your actions. So the moment you take that freedom away, like in a smart city, where you can't choose to do something anymore, you cease to be human. And this is a big concern for me.
Yeah, that's what it is. You cease to be human. What comes to mind, I don't know if you've seen that animation called WALL-E.
Yes, I have,
that's when they're in that ship and the people's bones haven't grown anymore, and like everything's just like in their face, consume. That's us. That's exactly what we're heading to. We're turning into bloody invalids, and that's what we're gonna have left.
But I'm sure this won't be the last chat that we have, but hopefully on your channel you'll be having many interviews with people, doing many videos. And the beauty of YouTube, Jarette, is the fact that you can grab your phone and do it. You can sit down and do an interview like this. There's so many different formats, and it's possible for you to build up a membership. This channel has over 800 members at the moment, which is really awesome. And so those members can sustain a channel and the work that you do, because it does take a lot of effort. Tell the people, how much effort has it taken from you on a daily basis to be an activist?
I don't think you can quantify it, because it's literally from the time you open your eyes until the time you close them. I mean, that is really the life of what we do. And because I'm inquisitive by nature, I've got about 16 hours a day just on my social media. 16 hours a day. I mean, that's not healthy for anybody. It's not. It's not. It's not good for your mind. But I mean, just on my social media, you know, that's the sort of attention we pay to. And then in the background, we're constantly working with. Like I said, you know, guys and students in universities, content creators. Investigators, people that want to help us with journalism. There's always so many different moving pieces and so many people that want to collaborate. And then you've also got a battle of people because you've got guys that are like, they're really gung-ho, they want to do something incredible, but they don't have a bloody clue what they're doing. And they've got all the ambition in the world, but they've got no direction. You know, so you've got to like learn how to navigate your way through people and all these types of things. It's endless. I mean, it's an endless process, and it's, you know, it's unlike you, I don't particularly want to be here. You know, I don't particularly want to be doing this. I don't think anybody in their right mind does, because it doesn't. You know, we do benefit from it, but it takes so much from us. You know, it really does. It takes so much away from us. There's so many sacrifices that we make.
Someone asked me earlier today, when can I take a break? And I said I can't see myself taking any break until the middle of next year. And there's specific reasons for that. So I can't see any. And when I mean a break, it might be 2 days where you don't speak to anybody. And we are privileged to be able to speak to people across the country. So I do see it as a privilege. It does take a lot of time and effort. And it's a full-time thing to actually help people, engage with people, email people, speak to people. And people must just understand that is what it takes. And I believe this YouTube format is going to help you to be able to sustain yourself, to focus. Because what it does do, Jarette, and I'll give you advice just now, if you will take that advice, it helps you to focus on the task at hand. And not just, you know, Facebook is a place where I just put my YouTube links at the moment. That's all I use it for. I don't communicate there at all at the moment. Telegram has been a much better place for me now that Facebook is in the metaverse. And the one thing that I've realized is that once you focus on making videos and you're actually creating playlists, the ideas shape themselves of what you need to discuss with people, the information that you have that you can transfer to them. And I'm sure that you're going to do a stunning job of that. You're a highly intellectual person. And I really trust that with proper discernment and with everything that you've experienced and already learned, that you will be able to have a huge impact on the South African information space, because we do need alternative information in the public domain. And the more we have, the better. So it's really awesome to have you on board on YouTube. So welcome. And advice that I want to give you is get to learn everything about the YouTube algorithms, and I'll help you with that. And all the other little bits and pieces, make the systems that we have available. We need to make it work for us, because you're going to reach more active people willing to actually do something on the ground through YouTube than you can ever meet through Facebook. And I think that's going to make a difference for you.
Stunning. Yeah, I'll take any advice I can get, Des. I'll take any advice I can get.
So thank you very much for taking that step. And you know, once you're in the public domain, people are going to come after you, criticize you, because you open yourself up to criticism. It's just the space that you exist in. The advice I want to give you: stuff them, carry on with your truth. Stuff me too. You know, at the end of the day, what you need to do is look at your convictions, your own convictions, which you've explained to the people earlier, and do what you can to make people understand what that means and make it translate into their lives. Because any good leader creates many other leaders. A narcissist will never empower another person. And that's the big difference. And you spoke about that earlier. So we need to change that narrative in the country. So you've actually already, through describing the problem, given a solution. All we need to do is make sure that more and more individuals are empowered, and that becomes a mainstream way of thinking. And we'll change this country in a very short space of time.
I believe it with all my heart.
So thank you very much for coming on. Everyone, please go and subscribe to Jarette Petzer. And thank you for more than 200 likes. And just remember, we want as many people as possible to watch this video so that the people can go and subscribe to that channel. Let's get it to 1,000 subs as fast as we can. Tell your friends and family. Share the link with other people on your platforms. And I always tell people, Jarette, and that's another piece of advice, that they shouldn't go and harass other people on other platforms. Don't be a troll. Use your own platforms. Create your own platforms where you can influence. And even if you have 10 or 20 people, make sure they're authentic and share links with them. So please go and share the link to Jarette's YouTube channel. Support him, help him when he has membership. Become a member on that channel to make it possible for him to be able to do the work, because it takes a lot of time and effort, a lot of resources. And I think with what you're going to be doing, it's going to be highly resource intensive, not as a lot more intensive than what I am doing. So hopefully you will think of initiatives to be able to fundraise in future, to be able to drive that. I would love to see interviews. I mean, where you have camera crews going with you. I think we see that overseas, but we need it here in South Africa desperately. And I believe that people can support you in that. You're young and energetic. You know, I'm past the 50-year mark. So I will absolutely support you if you can go and do that and just show people what's actually happening. Like if we had someone there at Sea Point that can actually see what's taking place. Instead of, a mainstream media giving a distorted view of something that happened a kilometer away from where we were. That role would be absolutely gold for South Africa. And I really encourage you to do that. And I believe that is what you want to do. And I want to thank you for coming onto the stream. Any final words for the people of South Africa?
So two things. I want to say thank you very much, Des, for giving me the platform, and to your, to those that are following you. Thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it. The second thing is we just have to stay steadfast. I know we're going to win this. I know that we're going to win this. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that prize is going to look like exactly, but I do believe this battle is ours to win, and that we all just need to find a little bit of tolerance, a little bit of love, a little bit of patience, and some courage. Now is the time to find courage, and no war that you go through. And let's be frank, because we're in a war of information. It's a war of the mind and a war of the heart right now. It's, no war that you go through without casualties. We must be willing to honestly look at ourselves in the mirror and say, what am I prepared to do for my freedom? And ask yourself that question. What am I prepared to do for that freedom? And have an honest, sincere conversation with yourself and find that answer, because that answer, that's what we need. We need people that are prepared to give everything that they can for our freedoms, and know that you're not alone. You're not alone. You are far from alone. In this country, especially, you're not alone. In this country, the numbers are all for you. I'd hate to be in Australia right now where, unfortunately things aren't the same way. But yeah, we are lucky, we're blessed. So let's hold on to each other, and let's not give up hope and find courage. That's all I want to say.
Okay, I like that, hope and courage. I want to add the word faith, because if you have faith, then hope will follow, and then action will come. And these global elites want to break down our faith and our hope. And it's a very powerful tool. And in my next live stream next week, Thursday, I will focus on that. It's actually something I want to focus on, is how that deliberately is being done. And hopefully your channel will expose things like that, Jarette. How that is, the mechanics of it, the bits and pieces. And I would love to sit and meet with you and strategize how a person can actually expose these things. And then I would love to see your ingenuity at play and how you're actually going to do it. So I'll certainly be following you on YouTube and see how you progress. I'm open to giving you the technical advice so that can get sorted as soon as possible, and hopefully we can meet up soon to do that. Tomorrow I will be in KwaZulu-Natal. I'm flying tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. I have to be at the airport very early because of the screenings that they do. But I will be at the Freedom SA event in Howick. I've sent out the link on Telegram. So I'll see the people there. I hear the weather's going to be interesting. So we'll see what it's like. But thank you, Jarette, for everything that you are willing to do and that you have done. And for the lessons that you've learned. You know, a person still has to go through everything.
Yeah. Thank you, Des. Thank you very much, my friend. Safe travels.
Have a good evening. Okay.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.